Oh yeah, we cooking now. Last one is right here. Come on in, invite a friend. Matter of fact, invite about 10, because it's Floating Yogi Book Club, and we about to go in. As I've mentioned before, we are reading our second storybook. If you haven't been hip to it, I'm trying to tell you, go and check them recaps, because the story's getting juicy. Juicy, like Ryuk would say from Death Note. If you don't know about that, go and Google it. It's ahead there. Anyway, the story's getting heated. She is running away and now trapped. She's trapped. She's a prisoner. So, with that being said, I'm going to run it back. Come on in, invite a friend, and I'm going to tell you about a few of mine. Matter of fact, invite about 10, because we about to go in. Some of the people who help me be me, help me do what I do. We got my dude, Yogi. He's part of the crew. He's from a dimension where people are our greatest resource, and I'm telling you right now, he is absolutely one of them. I encourage you to tap in with him and see how he can be a fantastic resource for you. And yeah, go and tell him a little bit about the daily meditation and movement accountability. Go and let them know a little bit about the daily prayer and affirmations.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love. So, first thing I do every morning is I turn on my camera and I tell all those people that choose to listen that I love them. Because if people can hate for no reason, then I can love for no reason. So, first thing we do is start with love. Then we do some prayer. Then we have some breath work. Or we switch it around a little bit. Breathe first, then pray. Either way, it's a great way to start the day. After that, you can head on over to Huey.dc to check that Move to Meditative button. Join the growth gang. Next day, you get a little shout out and a reminder to move and meditate again.
It's simple. It's these little healthy habits that we can start to implement into our day to create and facilitate a better state of well-being. We don't have to stay stressed when we have the answers. Sometimes it just takes standing in our own power as opposed to falling way to victimhood. Right? Another group of people who help me be me and help me do what I do. We got my dude Brent. He's part of the crew too. For some of these saucy digital assets that you're seeing, go and hit him up. He got it here for you. Hey, what up, Allison? Welcome. Come on in. We about to get started reading. We also have Lifeform. Lifeform got some fire mats. I highly encourage you to tap in with them so you can get that on mat practice, slip resistant, dope designs. You'll be able to just let go, not worry about is the mat an additional barrier or additional thing for my mind to get distracted on, or just let that go. You can just sink into the practice. You can start to solidify and deepen those on-mat lessons that we learned, overcoming things that we didn't think were possible, even if it's something as small as touching our toes. We can overcome that, and then we can just see how each one of those can just bring us a step closer, build more stamina, build more strength. And then, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I haven't been sick for 3 years. Anyway, that's going deep. Check out their mats, come to these places, and we can figure out how to take those on mat lessons off the mat and into our day-to-day life. Last one, I'm going to throw another one out, the Born to Fly Fitness, baby, where fitness is fashion and mental health is wealth. If you did not know about it, daggone it, I encourage you to tap in. Miles Davis is making it happen. I mean, my man Leon Bourne, check him out. For the boot classes, fitness, all that, man, he got you covered. If it ain't yoga, we're going to get that covered too. Got you covered. Alright, now let's get to the story. This lady has been locked up for, this girl, because she's a girl, for real. She ain't 18. And she's been locked up for about 4 months. And now she has been What do they say? When she in there, dang it, I forget. But she in there. That's what we know what that means. Alright, we're on chapter 17, the pen again. No longer does she have those easy joys of weaving baskets and stuff for the lady and free time to go frolic. Chapter 17, the pen again. Third week of June. I didn't waste any time with the sergeant. Events had drawn us all now into real yoga, into how yoga actually works. And I wasn't about to upset that happy circumstance over some things as insignificant as food. I also didn't want to put Basuku or his lovely boys in any more danger on my account. Sergeant, I said calmly, touching his arm again, and he jumped again and glared at me wickedly. I need food. I will need food. I will need a way to get food. He nodded. His eyes gleamed like a wolf's. I need you to get me a loom. Any old loom will do. Even that worn out old one at the woman's house. He opened his mouth to object. I moved quickly. Thank you, grandmother. You see, if I had a loom here in my cell, I can start to weave some real rugs. I can weave the kind of rugs we make in my country in Tibet. They are thicker than 5 of the old woman's rugs, softer to sit on, with a beauty you cannot imagine. One rug will bring you more money in a market than a dozen of hers. She said, you know what, old woman? You gonna try to hold me down? Now I'm gonna put you out of business. I'm gonna put you out of business. Let's do the real yoga. The sergeant's mouth closed slowly and he calculated. He was cruel, or perhaps just some kind of incredible pain, as cruel people always are. But he was not stupid. I suppose that could be arranged, he said slowly. And I would need yarn, balls of yarn in lots of colors. He hesitated. Selling a rug was one thing. Picking out balls of yarn in the marketplace surrounded by housewives was another. Just send one of the boys, Ravi, called out to Basuku from the other side of the wall. Shut up, Basuku, snarled the sergeant. But I saw in his eyes he'd do exactly that. And soon the boys began bringing me a tray too. Although I must say, it was always much smaller than my portly neighbors. Hey, welcome, Brent. At our next class, I set the captain down in his blanket, and first we did some silent sitting, working on the giving and taking with the help of his 2 men. Then we did a straight hour of some very simple work, just bending toes and fingers, ankles and wrists, shoulders and neck. After his rest at the end, he looked bright and refreshed, but then he started to frown a bit. Was that yoga? He asked. I laughed. Closer to the yoga than all the exercises you've been doing, for particular needs at the moment. But I was afraid not to start you with the exercises you'd probably already seen somewhere. I thought you'd think I didn't know anything about yoga, and then I'd never get my book back. And I let it go there, and we sat through the awkward pause. She's like, now you're gonna sit with this. Everything you do to me, you're gonna eat it. It's really just another part of yoga, I said finally, like so many things are. And today we must continue with that. We were talking about it because if it's at the bottom of how yoga actually works, and if you understand that, then your back will be healed. And then you can go on and heal others as well. The captain surveyed my face thoughtfully and said, I'm glad to continue with that. To tell you the truth, when I got home and tried to think about what was wrong with a thing being itself, I couldn't see it the way I could when you first said it. That's happened to me sometimes. I've had like a connection with someone, we're in conversation, we're in flow, and then they say it, and then it just clicks in my head and so clear. And then I'm trying to like explain it or articulate it, hit it back to G just to get like a wall to bounce it off of, and it's just blank. I've even like written it down a few times to try to write it down, but then what I wrote down, it was the words, but the image just didn't click for me. concept was like foreign as hell. And a lot of that has happened on pool. Like when they talk about different pool shots, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. Alright. I nodded. This was the way it went when everyone who tried to learn this crucial idea, at least he was working on it himself at home, and that would help a lot. Then I sat still for a moment and tried to think carefully how Katrine would have expressed it. This had to be my teacher's favorite subject. Come, sit at the desk, I began, and we settled down across from each other. There was a paper lying there, half covered with the beginning of a report. I wondered for a moment if I were in there somewhere, and off to one side stood a little clay ink pot and the captain's pen. It was like the ones back home, just thin shaft of fresh bamboo sharpened at one end, and I could see a large jar on the floor filled with others. And as Katrine and that beloved being had done, I picked up the pen and I held it between us. What is this thing? A pen, of course. And the pen itself? Yes, of course. Itself, by itself. As all things are, he affirmed. There, that's it. You did it. Just then. I said. Did what? He asked, his eyes looking around him ever so slightly. You turned it around. I said, turned it around? Your mind. Your mind turned it around. And the master says, as he begins with his short book about yoga, and perhaps the most important of all the important lines of that wonderful book, he says, yoga is learning to stop, how the mind turns things around. I'm going to run that back, because that's a Yoga Sutra. Yoga is learning to stop how the mind turns things around. This happens a lot for me, because I give instructions in yoga class, and I'll say like, step your right foot forward. And I can say it like 3 times. And either deer in the headlights, or like, let's say the left foot goes forward, or the right hand moves. And I'm like, right foot forward, warrior 1. Right foot, we don't even need to get to warrior 1. And then I come over and say, excuse me. Oh, I thought you were saying left foot, or I thought you were saying right, or I didn't know you were talking to me, and they only went in the room. It just goes to show how the mind is so strong. We're interesting creatures, because we can walk into a room and not know why we walked into the room. But then, when someone tells us that they said something else, we can affirm that we heard what we heard and they said what we heard. So we don't want to doubt our own mind. It's a little bit of fragility about how we perceive reality and whatnot. We can go deeper in on that. China! What up, though? We can go a little deeper in on that. You know, once you sign up on, you see that link at the bottom that's pinned? It might be at the top. It's on the page tag on it. It's on there. It's pinned. Go and check that joint. Sign in. Join the UEDC. Join the Broke Gang. Let's do it. Yoga is learning to stop how the mind turns things around. I don't I laughed as I hadn't laughed in months. At least there was some magic still left in the world. I skipped to the window and looked around. About 5 feet to the ground, there was a huge black cow with his head craning up to a straggly little mango tree growing up against the wall, trying to strip it of its last few green leaves. Corporal, front and center, cried the captain. The corporal burst through the door instantly, if he might have been leaning up against it all day long, eavesdropping on our class. Sir, he gasped importantly. Corporal, get outside and remove that cow at my window from the facility grounds. I can hardly hear myself think. I saw the corporal instinctively rub his legs. I looked out at the cow, big, black, huge, long, black ears, bendy, oddly cow's wings, a mother with a full udder and babies to feed, and so persistent, very persistent. It occurred to me that she probably kicked the corporal and pooped on him. Well, that's unfortunate. I wouldn't want to be kicked on nor pooped on. Captain! Sir! No! I plead. It's perfect. We need her for a moment too. Need that nuisance? Whined my perplexed student. Need her. Yes, I said again. Corporal, he bellowed again. Sir, trumpeted back at the young man with a click in his heels. Cancel that order. The cow stays where it is. Stays? Yes, eating the last tree here? Yes, sir. And corporal, sir. Do an about face. Go out the door, close the door, softly. Step over the bench on the other side, sit down and do nothing. Absolutely nothing. Until I call for you. Am I understood? Sir. Sit and go do nothing. Sir. Right away, sir. And he was gone. And the two of us sighed in relief. I leaned out the window and pulled off a few fat leaves and threw them over on the ground to keep Mrs. Cowles engaged. Then I returned quickly to the desk and held up the pen once more. Again, this is a pen. Itself. And by itself, how else? Observe, I said, for this was exactly what Katrine had said to me. Come, I urged the captain. And we stood side by side and leaned out the window together, close together. And I glanced to the side at the black curls of his hair and his capable features and suddenly realized that he looked very much like my father. And I felt the pain go through my heart. Almost 3 years now. 3 long years since I'd last seen my family. Chop. I called to my lady. She looked up with that grisly face and spread her floppy ears in uncertainty. Oh, I'll not hurt you, I crooned. Just another treat for you. I held out the captain's nice green bamboo pen. The captain's eyebrows arched and he began to open his mouth. But it was too late. Her huge slobbery tongue was out and up in a second, enveloping the bamboo, and there was crunching sound and a swallow, followed by the inevitable plea, look for more. I threw her down a few more leaves and hurried the captain back to the desk. I pulled another pen out of his jar on the floor and held it up. Again, what is this? A pen, he insisted, beginning to sound a little defensive. Itself. By itself. And so a pen to the cow as well. The captain looked a little more confused. He glanced towards the window and licked his lips. And then he said, a little hesitantly, I don't think you can say it's a pen to the cow. I don't think she saw it as a pen, really. On the contrary, I boomed, trying to imitate Katrine's expression at the same juncture in the face of steel and eyes, so clear that I could almost cry. Isn't it true that she saw it as something different, completely different? Isn't it true that she saw it as something to eat? Okay. Well, yes, I suppose, he stumbled. Suppose? Say it. Admit it. It wasn't a pen to her at all. Well, no, I guess, no, quite right. You're correct, he admitted. So you see it as a pen, and she sees it as something to eat. And who's right? Which one of you is right? Is it a pen or is it something to eat? Which one is it really? I insisted. He looked stumped for a moment and then answered a little more surely. I don't think you can say that either of us was right, really. It just looks one way to her and it looks another way to me. I guess you could say that what it is depends on who's looking at it. he concluded, and looked to see if I approved. But he wasn't getting off that easy. Oh yeah, he's starting to get it now. I guess you could say, oh yeah. So then it's not a pen, I said. Well, not to everyone, he replied. And so it's not itself. The pen is not itself. I dragged him on. Well, not itself in that sense, he agreed. Not itself by itself. Am I right? Not itself by itself so that even the cow would see it as a pen. Am I right? Well, I suppose, well, yes, you're right, he said, chewing a little bit on his bottom lip, thinking hard. I pointed down at his desk, time to come to his rescue. What is this paper, I asked. A report, he replied cautiously, a report to the superintendent. And is this report itself? Is this a report made by itself? Well, no, he replied. I made it a report. I take a blank piece of paper and then I write things on it, and as I write it, it becomes a report. No report is a report by itself. I held up the report in one hand and then the pen in the other hand. But don't you see? I breathed in excitement, the same excitement that had filled my teacher's face the day Katrina had taken me down the same path. Don't you see that the pen is the same as the report? No, I don't see it, he said, sensing the excitement and frustration that he couldn't share. The pen is like the report, you see. You are making it, you are writing it. It's just a little green piece of stick, and then your eyes come along and your mind comes along and thinks of it as a pen, turning it into a pen, making it a pen. I paused to see if he could pick up the idea and finish it. And by goodness he did. Yes, I see. And the cow, her mind is different, you see. Her mind makes the same green stick into something you eat. And if it was a pen itself, by itself, well, then she'd see it as a pen too. And she'd never think to even eat it. Things are not themselves, he whispered. Amazing. I never thought of that. And then, after a long pause, he added, but what has this got to do with fixing my bad back? He asked. Everything, I replied. Later, he laughed. Think on it, I said, and returned to my cell where the inside had just begun to become the outside. Dun, dun, dun. So she told the captain at the end of the last chapter, she was like, after he said that you are now a prisoner here, you've been found guilty of running away, she was like, I'm not even going to try to go off at you. I'm not even going to try to do nothing crazy. I'm just going to make the inside of the jail the outside of the jail. And she went back to her cell. I wonder what made it look like the outside. I know she got food now. She's got that loom that she's getting with yarn so she can make colors and do some designy stuff. She can sell it so she's going to have some money. I like how she going. She using that noodle. She using that noggin. Where we at on time? Out there. Over there. How much is in this chapter? Oh, yeah. Done. We're going to do this. Out there, over there. 4th week in June. You remember I said that there was one worse thought. Worse even than selfishness. The root of selfishness, really. And it blocks up the winds and the channels and causes pain in your back. Causes every form of pain, really, physical or mental. You did speak of that, said the captain. Well, that's it. That's the thought. It's the way we think. It's the way of thinking that turns things around. And the master is saying that the very purpose and meaning of yoga is to stop this way of thinking. Well, he observed, it makes sense that the goal of yoga would be to stop the way of thinking that ties up your channels and causes problems like my back. That would make the poses and exercises which you usually think of as yoga sort of a partner working for the same goal, knocking on the pipes from the outside while we fix the wind thoughts on the inside. Exactly, I replied, and waited for the question. There's one thing that bothers me though, he continued. I can see how sitting quietly every day and practicing scenes in my mind where I take problems away from others and then destroy them inside my heart could have a powerful effect on those inner winds, especially if they're tied up in my thoughts. And the same for mentally sending people and things I think they'd most like. But I don't see how things with the pen ties in the same way. I mean, I realize that there's something about my own mind that makes me see a particular piece of green stick as a pen, and I realize that there's something about that blasted cow's mind that makes her see the same stick as something she might want for dessert. And so I realized that the pen wasn't the way I thought it was. I mean, I see that there's part of my mind and that's always been turning things around in a way, making me think things are themselves by themselves when really things are themselves only because my mind draws them in a certain way. But I don't see any clear plan of action like I did with the practicing thoughts of kindness, for example. I don't see anything I could practice to get better at or which would make me get better the way that, say, doing the poses every day is helping. And when he said it, it suddenly dawned on both of us that he really was getting much better. He hardly ever held us back with his hand anymore as he talked. The bags under his eyes were fading away. He was sleeping again. The problem with getting well sometimes is that it doesn't announce itself the way that hurting your back does in the first place. I'm going to run that back just because that's so true. The problem with getting well sometimes is that it doesn't announce itself the way that hurting your back does in the first place. So when you're practicing with me and you practice in Ashtanga, stay consistent. Do your 3 days, do your 4 days, do your 5 days, do your 6 days, but do your days. Just stay consistent because one day you're going to be like, oh, I'm good now, oh, I'm healed, and all those things that you were doing that was getting you to feel better and make you actually mobile and take away some of the pain, you stop it. So they're going to come back. It's that simple. It ain't rocket science. You don't use it, you lose it. If you were doing something to get it and then you stop, guess what's going to happen? The same that you was in to begin with. Moving forward.
How consistent is consistent though?
3 days a week, 4 days a week. That simple. 5 days a week is great. I say 3 days a week if you got some problems and you're like, I know I'm a procrastinator. I know I'm not really able to commit to something every day. I say do it every day. Because if you fall, if you fall short before you win. You show
so I've got an opportunity. I've got an opportunity for you not to be trifling. You said just now.
You know those aren't tasty.
You started with minimum 3-4 days. But we got on this topic because I was wondering about consistency. I used to run hot. And by running hot, I mean I used to just go to the end of my rope and then die for like a week and then come back and start all over again.
That's horrible.
That was my cycle. It was manageable. Then I had 4 kids and decided it wasn't. My parents recommended against the 2. So, now it's not exactly the same, but there are periods of stress and there are periods of rest. Your thing is consistency. So, you gave the minimum of 3 or 4. Is it better to be 100% of the time 3 or 4 days, or is it better to be 90% of the time 3 or 4 days, 8% of the time 7 days, and only 2% of the time like anything less than that. My point is more work or is more practice better than overall consistency in itself?
At a certain point, no, man. Like, you need rest, and you have to listen to your body first and foremost.
I'll say
Okay,
this.
then let's just change my
No,
number.
you don't even have to do that. With what you said, I would say that is more ideal than my first option.
I think it makes more sense if you look at consistency as a spectrum, because not
Yeah.
everybody's gonna fit. Not everybody's gonna fit on the high end of the spectrum. That's clearly the goal. One is the goal, and the other is I'm not doing too good, but I'll be good again.
And that's how I'm giving you an opportunity to not be trite, because you said consistency, and immediately my mind exploded. Because I'm like, this is not a white and black word.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, what's the best way I could dig into it the deepest? That's why I even started with the one question at minimum, and then the real question was, what's going on there. So go ahead and expand on that last part a little bit. You said it was even better, in your opinion.
Yeah, no, because the goal is 6 days. So, like, if you're doing more towards the goal, that's a win. And if you found a rhythm that you can keep up that allows you to increase the amount of days that you practice, that's a win. So the goal is it's even in the book. I got the workshop this week. Plug. Check me out at Sun and Moon Yoga. G is back. We are teaching Journey Through
Welcome back,
Ashtanga.
G.
We're doing the 8 limbs of yoga. We're talking about the tradition, the history of Ashtanga, of the Mysore practice, the difference between lead and Mysore. We're going to dive into some of the sequence. And if you are unfamiliar with the actual flow, we're going to get started with some sun styles. So check it out, Sun and Moon Yoga. The partners, the people who help me be me, help me do what I do. They part of the crew too. So, consistency. I would say the book states do something like start off with 3 days a week, because you need that consistency of doing something to become familiar with it. At least, if 3 days seems insurmountable, if it seems like a lot, like, oh my gosh, do 3, and just do sun A's. Just do 5 sun A's. Do 3 sun A's. Start to build your stamina. A lot of times people think it's just as simple as just doing it. Well, I'm just moving my body. No, it's just like working out.
I'm pretty sure I'm still in my first year of doing it, and I'm still only doing sun A's. And when I started, I don't think I did a full downward dog for 5 full breaths. It was very painful.
Yeah, that's right.
So, encouragement to anybody out there.
Downward dog is a resting pose.
Say what?
I said downward dog is a resting pose. Everybody looks at me like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. That son of a bitch takes work. It's a resting pose.
The devil is a liar.
It might be resting pose for me because I'm flexible though. So
Yeah, it might be resting pose for y'all.
Hey,
You can bend your
something
knees.
else different.
You can bend your knees to
There's
get the V
options.
shape
Oh, I could.
when you begin.
Oh, that's the problem is bending the knees. My fucking tendons are fucking fucked on my Achilles.
well, keep them Jones straight. Keep them Jones straight. And then pedal the feet. That's it. There's so many ways, yo. There's so many ways. These are just shapes. These are just shapes we put in our body and that are safe to create movement, yo. Okay, where we at? Where we at? Okay, we doing good. Consistency. Find your thing. Every 6 months, add a day. 3 days a week to start, and then after 6 months, add a day. The practice is not just to practice. You want to grow yourself, and growth isn't comfortable. And a lot of times, people are always going after what they feel. Oh, well, I don't feel good today. There's going to be so many days when you don't feel like doing something, and majority of the days I didn't feel like doing it, I've had so many breakthroughs. Fuck your feelings. Practice. Learn balance. Don't go so hard. Do less. A lot of times we do too much. I want to do this. Oh, I'm pushing so hard. Do less. Let's find out how to do less. I'm not able to vocalize how to tell you to do less, but I can bring awareness to certain things that you're doing that are ineffective or inefficient, and we can make adjustments to those inefficiencies.
I did a lot of child's poses. Every time you said, let's explore child's pose, okay, let's explore that. That's what my body's calling for right now.
Yeah, no, stay, get strong. Sayings don't crumble. Move forward. It doesn't get easier, you just get stronger, or not. Facts. It doesn't get easier. You just get stronger, or without the consistency, you for sure don't. You for sure don't. And the thing about not doing it, like the consistency that I'm saying, like 3-4 times a week, if you don't do it 3 or 4 times a week, it's just like going to work out once a week. You burn your muscles out and they get nothing from it because the muscles strengthen after they tear and they're forced to regrow in that new space.
It's like the minimum effective amount of working out once a week. I think you're still getting something from it. It's just the minimum amount.
It's so minimum. You're getting something from it. I would.
Yeah, I would change that to like, once a month or once every other week because, leg day and back day and shoulders, like you have days of the week for each group or whatnot.
Now listen to what I said. I said working out one day a week. I did not say if we're doing individual things on different days. Working out one day a week. That means maybe you fit everything in on that one day and burn yourself out. Or maybe you just half-ass part of the things. That's up to you. But if you do all the things, you're gonna be burnt out. That's great. But you're not able to continue to work out in that stress. You're not able to continue to work out those muscles in those stress conditions. So the muscle fibers you're not telling them how to grow, where to strengthen, where's the weakness in the chain, where am I supposed to connect? You're not giving it that awareness. So it's just gonna sit there and go, yes, we did it.
When you stretch really far, like you press yourself to an uncomfortable point and you sit there, you're still like tearing the muscle. You're still retraining your muscle to stretch further,
It's
so
the
like,
grow back part that I'm speaking on. You're training it to stretch, that's great, but you want it to strengthen.
And it will around the tendon, especially if it's something you practice like consistently.
Let me know how that works out. Do a whole bunch of in-range motion exercises. Just let me know how that works out. I would
I'm talking about in yoga, Jarrick. I
Yeah.
just mean getting into poses and being able to hold yourself there. I mean, it definitely like my shoulder flexibility is increased. Doing toe touches and just things I didn't even realize would places I would gain strength in uncomfortable positions. It's crazy.
I don't want to go too deep into this. We can sidebar this because I don't want this info to go to other people. Let's sidebar this. But I know what you're saying. And yes, holding yourself can for sure allow for more mobility, open up certain areas, tear muscles for them to grow back if you have a certain build and have a certain routine or movements in your day-to-day life. For sure. I encourage it to be this practice. They thought of things that we don't think about. And we're learning about them. Let's get these last few minutes in before this thing cuts off.
Yeah, I was about to bring a weekend.
Yeah. Let's see. The problem with getting well sometimes is that it doesn't announce itself the way that hurting your back does in the first place. Yoga teachers. Even when they succeed with someone, they are rarely appreciated. I don't necessarily believe that. It's a lot of love to become this way. I know. You need to see the larger picture, I answered. And we'll have a plan of action, one that actually goes to the core of why your back hurts at all. I thought that that was the channels, he said. The channels and those inner winds and things getting choked up. I thought that was the bottom of everything. Well, there's bottoms and there's bottoms, I said. We have to just keep going until we really get to the bottom. So we'll start from the beginning, I said. Let's start from the womb. Excuse me. Let's start way back at your mother's womb. He settled back to listen, fixing his eyes on me carefully. Now again, the worst of all bad thoughts, the worst of all your ways of thinking really is thinking that things could be by themselves by themselves. It is what the master called misunderstanding our world a couple chapters ago. And it's the worst kind of thoughts that choke up your inner channels and lies at the bottom of every other negative thought that chokes up the channels. And ultimately, these choke points are what cause